Hi, welcome to this AQA A-Level Business revision video focusing on 3.3.2, Understanding Markets and Customers. In today's video, we're going to be looking at Price Elasticity of Demand and Income Elasticity of Demand. A quick reminder that my teaching here is in no way related to my teaching or consultation roles in any and all academies up and down the country. My name's Mr. Giles. Let's get down to business. So we're going to try and go at a slower pace today. This video may well end up being quite long, but please just persevere. Now, if you're an economist or an economics student, then this will probably be a very slow version of what you're used to. But if you're a business student, this is often a difficult concept to understand. And it's one that a lot of my students often shy away from. So let's explore PED first. I've put on the board here my definition. And for me, PED is the responsiveness of customers to a change in price. And that word responsiveness really helps us summarize what is going on here. So before we move into the real language of it, let's explain. If I told you that the cost of petrol was suddenly jumping up by £1 a litre, would you expect more people to stop driving and start walking places? I think the logical answer would be yes, but you'd probably be surprised because I'm going to show my age a little bit here, folks. But when I first started driving, all the way back in 2001, a litre of petrol was 40 pence. It's now 2025, and a litre of petrol is around £1.40. So the prices have in fact jumped by a pound. Okay, incrementally, I'll give you that, but they're still a pound more expensive. Wages have not increased at the same rate, and yet the amount of people driving has increased, not decreased. So as it happens, people aren't that responsive to a change in the price in petrol. In fact, we just expect petrol to go up, and then we just budget it into our income, and maybe we are a little bit more considerate with when we drive or how far we drive, or oh, sorry, I can't make that long distance drive, it's going to cost me too much money. But we're not all that responsive. However, there might be some other things in our life that if they significantly increased in price, you would go, oof, that's not worth it, I'm not buying that anymore. That's what we mean by responsiveness. Now, there is some language that we need to be able to have and to juggle with. Now, the two words are just here. We have elastic and inelastic. So PED, price elasticity of demand, can be explained as either being elastic demand or elastic PED or inelastic. If it's elastic, it means that the customers are very responsive to a change in price. So that means if you lower the prices, they're going to be very happy and buy more. And if you increase the prices, they're not going to be very happy and they're going to buy less significantly. Okay, they're very responsive. Whereas if they're inelastic, if you increase the prices, they're not going to be happy about that, but they're not going to buy too much less. Some people might, but not a great deal of people. And vice versa, if you increase the prices, then if you decrease the prices, then people are going to be happy about that, but you're not going to gain any more customers because people are already buying that product. An example of an inelastic product was my petrol example. If you lowered the price of petrol, people wouldn't suddenly do more driving. People just do driving. Now, some people will say, well, I don't drive because it costs too much money, and that's fair, but that's not a significant part of our population. So if you decreased the price of petrol, you wouldn't suddenly sell more petrol. It just wouldn't happen. Okay, if anything, you would just make less money. However, my favorite example, and any of my students who watch this will know this, my favorite example for elastic products is the cinema. Now, the cinema has gone through a bit of a transition where it used to be very, very cheap. Again, I'm going to show my age here, folks. But when I was sort of 15, 16, to go to the cinema was £2, just £2 to get in to see a film. You wouldn't get in to see a film for £2 anywhere now. Whenever I take my daughter to the cinema, she's very young, even just for a kid's film on a Saturday morning, it's still £4 or £5. Now, cinema tickets actually peaked around the sort of 2010s, and it was when the Avengers Endgame came out. And they were as high as £30 to go and see a film. Now, albeit, 3D and all those experiences. But cinema tickets really ramped up in price, but people didn't see the value in money for it. So attendance to cinema significantly decreased. Now, there are other factors at play there, streaming sites and pirating and that kind of stuff. But generally speaking, there was a significant increase in price that drove people to stop going to the cinema. So it would appear that cinema tickets are quite elastic, i.e., if you bring cinema tickets down, people will probably go more, which they did. Okay, cinema tickets are much cheaper now. And petrol, however, is inelastic because if you drop the price of petrol, people are not going to drive more. But if you put the price of petrol up, people are still going to be forced to use it and you'll probably make more money. So that's the language. Elastic, very responsive. Inelastic, not very responsive. I'm going to try and show you that in its numerical form now because you need to be able to understand the numbers. Okay, let's explore a numerical example of an elastic PED. So on the board here, I've put price, quantity sold, and then the revenue generated. And as a business student, this revenue generated or the impact on revenue should be your biggest priority because this is Mr. Giles' secret sauce. The questions about PED will always link back to revenue and or profits. So here's my baseline. I've got a price of £1. I sell 100 units. That makes me £100 revenue. Nice and simple. Well, what happens if I increase the prices? Now I'm going to increase the price by just 3 pence to £1.03. What happens to my quantity? Well, as it happens, quantity drops by 10 units. So it's quite a significant drop. That's a 10% drop. Well, how much revenue am I now making? So even though my price has increased, I'm actually making significantly less revenue. My revenue drops to 92.7. So we know that customers are very responsive to an increase in price because when I put my price up by just 3%, 3 pence, I'm going to lose 10% of my customers. They're very responsive. However, if I go the other way and I reduce my prices by 3 pence, I'm going to gain 10 customers. So again, they're very responsive. There were 10 customers sitting in the wings, just waiting for a drop in price of just a mere 3 pence. And I'm going to gain an extra 10 customers. Well, what does that do to my revenue? Well, it shoots it all the way up to £106.70. So again, this product is very price elastic because customers are very responsive to a change in price. Now, at the bottom here, I've given you the formula for PED. On your specification, it says you don't have to calculate it, which you don't. But I think it's just good to know because it'll help you understand if something's elastic or inelastic. So the formula is the percentage change in quantity demanded. That little triangle represents change. So the percentage change in the quantity demanded divided by the percentage change in price. Okay, so by what percentage did my demand go up and down, and by what percentage did my price go up and down? Now, for the sake of this, we're just going to ignore minuses and pluses, although I've put them on the board. They are important, just not to you really. Okay, so my quantity changed by 10%. So if I just do this first one, my quantity changed by minus 10% because I went from 100 units down to 90 units. So my quantity demanded changed by negative 10%. I lost 10% of my customers. But what did I do with my prices? Well, I put them up by a mere 3%. So in my calculator, I would do minus 10 over 3, and that would give me the answer of 3.33 reoccurring. Well, what does that number mean? Well, I promise you, after the next clip, I will tell you all about the numbers. But we know that this is a very elastic product. Let's have another numerical example of an inelastic product. So here we have an example of an inelastic PED. Again, we've got our base units just here of £1 price, 100 units being sold, and then £100 revenue being made. So if I choose to increase my prices by, again, just 3% up to 3 pence, I'm going to lose some customers. It happens either way. You don't put prices up and gain customers, really. So I'm only going to lose one customer. So the customers are not very responsive to a change in price. There's only one person who was like, 3 pence extra is too rich for my blood. So if I do that maths calculation, and you can double check my maths if you think I'm making this up, I actually end up making more money. So I put my prices up, I lose a customer, but I make more revenue because the other 99 customers who are choosing to stay are paying the extra 3 pence. So I make an extra £1.97. So straight away, you can see there, well, why would I put my prices down? If I can put prices up, make more money and not lose customers, I'm going to put my prices up. Petrol. If I put my prices down, I'm going to gain some customers, but again, they're not very responsive. I'm only going to gain one customer. There was only one person waiting in the wings for a 3%, 3 pence drop or a 3% drop. Only one person. So I'm going to gain one customer. Okay. So I dropped prices, gain a customer, but I lose revenue. So I've gone from 100 to £97.97. And the reason being is the other 100 people were very much willing to pay the pound. Now they're getting it 3 pence cheaper. They were going to pay a pound anyway. And we're only gaining one extra unit of revenue at 97 pence. So all 100 of my original customers get it 3 pence cheaper. So I lose £3. And then I gain an extra 97 pence from my new customer. So I actually lose revenue. So by putting the prices down, I make less money. That is an inelastic product. So you can see now why petrol companies have zero incentive to drop the price of petrol. Why the price of petrol will never fall below a pound ever again in the history of man, because there is zero incentive to do it. People are not going to be buying more petrol because it's cheaper. We're all quite content paying £1.40 a litre. Now, again, at the bottom, I've put the calculation. So a percentage change in quantity demanded divided by a percentage change in price. So my quantity demanded in this instance, I'll just do this column here. My quantity demanded went down by 1%, just one unit lost, so minus 1%. But I put my prices up by 3%, put my price up by 3 pence. If I do that divide on my calculator, I get minus 0.33. That is inelastic. When it comes to PED, I like to teach it on a spectrum like this because we're going to inevitably be given some numbers. So we looked at them earlier. With our inelastic example, we calculated it to be minus 0.33. And with our elastic example, we calculated it as 3.33. Now, those numbers just so happen to be on my example. You might be told that, say, for example, coffee has a price elasticity of minus 0.5. And you'd be expected to know what that minus 0.5 means. So here's my spectrum. In the center, we have 0, okay, 0. Any number for elasticity that sits between positive 1 and minus 1 is considered inelastic because it's within the boundary. So if I tell you that coffee has a price elasticity of minus 0.5, you would go, okay, that's inelastic. And you would know that if you put the price of coffee up, you probably wouldn't lose too many customers because they're not that responsive, and you'd probably make more revenue. And if you dropped the price of coffee, you probably wouldn't gain too many customers because, again, they're not that responsive, and you'd probably end up losing revenue. That's what you know about coffee. So it's within the boundary of minus 1 and 1. If, however, I tell you that the elasticity for tea is 2, then you know that the people are very elastic. They're very responsive to it because it's beyond the boundary of 1 or minus 1. And you would know that actually, if you're going to change the prices, you're going to see a drastic difference in the quantity demanded. So if it's between minus 1 and 1, it is considered inelastic. If it is beyond minus 1 or beyond 1, it is considered elastic. So not very responsive and very responsive. Now, let's talk about the minuses and the positives. If we're honest, you're probably going to only be dealing with the negatives because in most situations, if you change the price of a product, you'll see a normal response in demand. So you put prices up, demand falls. You put prices down, demand rises. And then it's usually just the extent to which that occurs. So if something is inelastic and you increase prices, you're not going to lose too many customers. Okay, we will discuss that at length. However, there are some products that if you put the prices up, you still gain customers. You don't lose customers, you gain customers. All right. So if we think about, say, luxury products, they'll probably benefit from putting their prices up. They'll probably gain more customers from putting their prices up. Okay. Or it might be circumstances like, say, for example, you go to the theatre or the cinema and you want to buy some snacks. Those prices are going up and up and up, and people are going to buy. Now, are they going to buy more? That's a bit of a tricky situation. But let's say, for example, you go to see a concert, you go to your favorite artist, and there's a limited edition t-shirt. A normal t-shirt for that artist is, say, £20. This one is limited edition and it's at the concert, but it's £50. Doesn't matter. All of the people there will buy it, even though they weren't going to buy one of the other t-shirts because it's limited edition, as an example. So there are circumstances where if you put the price up, then people will buy more. Okay. So that's where you would get a positive one or plus, two or whatever. Most of the time we're going to be dealing with negatives because, again, most products, if you put the price up or down, you will either lose or gain customers in a logical way. So that's PED, how responsive customers are to a change in price. If you're still with me in this video, give yourself a little clap. You're doing really well. I appreciate it's a long and it's a tough, heavy one. We're almost at the end now. Let's look at income elasticity of demand, also known as YED. So PED looks at the responsiveness of demand of customers in relation to the price of the products. YED looks at the responsiveness in demand from customers' changes of income. Okay, now we have to understand that during the economic cycle, the amount of money being made by customers in terms of their incomes can probably ebb and flow. It can shift. Now, those people who are, well-paid jobs, who probably aren't going to be made redundant, etc., are okay. However, there is a significant part of the population whose incomes change drastically over time. It's just a part of life. So what we've got here is another spectrum that looks at the buying habits of customers based on changes in their income. So I love a little spectrum here. So we have 0 again. Fortunately for this one, there's only really kind of 2 phases. If YED is less than 0, i.e. is a negative number, then you have what is considered an inferior good. So what that means is if consumer incomes drop significantly and people buy more of your product is called or considered inferior. Now, my favorite example of this is like instant noodles. They're super cheap in any supermarket, anywhere. I mean, you can buy them as cheap as like 5 pence from your Lidl and Aldi's. Your super noodles, that kind of stuff, 50 pence. The only time, hopefully, in your lives, folks, that you'll be forced to live off of super noodles is when you go to university and you're on an extremely strict budget because your income, bizarrely, is about 0. So super noodles are considered an inferior good. By the time you finish university or you do your apprenticeship or whatever, and you get your first job and you start earning money, super noodles or instant noodles are going to be in the rearview mirror, and you're probably not going to go back to them unless you just really like them. Okay. And that's probably the only caveat there, but that's probably not very common. So that is an inferior good, a product that customers buy as their incomes significantly reduce. All right. And just think anything that is essentially cheap, discounted, things out of Poundland, places like that. Okay. Now, if you have a YD between 0 and 1, that is considered a normal good. Okay. Those are things that people buy regardless of changes in their income. So that would be things like toothpaste, toilet paper, baked beans, milk. Okay, these are things that we would buy probably regardless of our income. So even if you was on your last £10, you're suddenly not going to stop brushing your teeth. Okay, well, most people wouldn't. Okay, so that's considered a normal good. If you have a YD of beyond 1, you're still considered a normal good. It really kind of gets to me that people suddenly just forget it's a normal good. It's still a normal good, but it's considered a luxury normal good. Okay, so you can just say it's a luxury, that's fine, but please remember it's a normal luxury good. So you've got a YD of beyond 1, and the further away from 1 it gets, the more luxury it is considered. And what that means is the more that consumer incomes rise, the more of those products you're going to buy. So you're a student, you've got £6.50 to your name. You're not rushing to Ralph Lauren to buy a nice new blazer. It's just not happening, folks. However, you get out into the world, you suddenly start earning loads of money, you get a massive pay rise, you're earning 90 grand a year. Now you are buying more Ralph Lauren blazers. And then you get a big old Christmas bonus. You get in, a 50 grand Christmas bonus because you're some sort of crazy trader or something. I don't know, all right? Now you're buying more skiing holidays in the Alps. Okay, these are considered significant luxury items. So YED, if it's less than 0, your product is considered an inferior good and you're hoping for consumer incomes to fall. If you're between 0 and 1, you're considered a normal good and you're basically pretty safe from changes in customer incomes. However, if you sell a product that is considered a luxury, i.e. a YED of +1, you are significantly impacted by changes in customer incomes, and you hope that customer incomes increase, because the more that customer incomes increase, the more likely is they're going to buy your product because it is a luxury. Now, I haven't put the formula on here how to calculate that because you genuinely don't know how to do it. You just need to be considerate of the numbers. So they'll probably give it to you in a table, and they love mixing PED and YED together. And what they do is they'll say, this product's got a PED of -2, so it's elastic, and it's got a YED of 1.2, so it's a luxury good. So it's massively elastic, but it's a luxury good. Oh, that's a tricky one. So if I put prices up, are people going to buy less? Yeah. But if incomes go up, are they going to buy more? Oh, yeah. Okay. So they kind of work them together like that. If you've got any questions, please put them in the comment section down below and I will try and answer them. If you've managed to all the way through this video, big congratulations to you because it's heavy going stuff. But there we are. PD, YED in the bag. I'll catch you in the next one.